This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
They come to the 8th ball, and California Chrome is absolutely sensational. California Chrome shines bright in the Kentucky Derby.
Will take charges surging, and it's a photo finish. It's too close to call.
African Story wins the Dubai World Cup.
Macho Man!
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to a brand new week here on Racing Across America. It's Monday morning. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. A little bit later on, the return of Mike Penna. We've been, of course, up at Saratoga up until the beginning of last week, and we plugged some of the regulars in. Mike wasn't available last Monday, but he'll start with us again this Monday. Mike Penna, Horse Racing Radio Network, Monday morning stakes recap. We'll take a look at some of the stakes action yesterday from Woodbine, also the Kentucky Turf Cup Saturday at Kentucky Downs. A little bit later on, Frank Vespi from the RacingBiz.com. They do a great job of covering racing in the Mid-Atlantic region, including racing in Maryland at Laurel on Saturday. Nice slate of stakes races. Excuse me. Still have the congestion from closing day at the racetrack. Took it out of me, although I did spend a couple days in Maine at the end of last week, so hopefully I'm on the rebound. But Frank Vespi jumps in because at Laurel on Saturday, kind of a part of the outcome of the situation at Colonial Downs being located in Virginia, no racing there this summer. They had a nice slate of stakes races featuring Virginia breds at Laurel on Saturday. So we'll kind of go over a few of those because I said it on the Handicappers Report a few minutes ago. They were fun because they brought in some familiar names from a lot of different venues, and that always makes for very competitive and fun racing. So we'll hit on some of those stakes races from Saturday at Laurel with Frank in a few minutes. Mentioned it on the Handicappers Report earlier, the Prix Vermeil. There was a nice slate of kind of ARC and ARC Day prep races at Longchamp on Saturday in France. One of them was the Group 1 Prix Vermeil. Trev was entered. There was some news a week and a half or so ago. Frankie Dettori was taken off Trev. Another jockey who had won on Trev previously was put back on board. It didn't make a difference because the disappointing season for Trev continues. Trev finishes 4th in the Prix Vermeil. Subsequently, trainer Cricket Head said Trev is still pointed to the ARC. We'll see what happens there. But boy, when she won the ARC last year, she just looked like an incredible superstar at that point in the making. And so far this season just has not been as productive for Trev. We'll keep our eyes there, see, as I say, what happens going forward. Some sad news right up the road. Old Friends in Cabin Creek, the Old Friends offshoot for retired thoroughbreds up in Greenfield Center. Barons was one of the residents up there, Grade 1 winner Barons. Barons passed away Sunday, age 20, and folks around here maybe remember Barons as having run a close-up second, 1997 Travers Stakes. Subsequently in the career, Barons also second in the Whitney in 1999, but just prior to that, a nice win streak that included the Gulfstream Park Handicap, the Oaklawn Handicap, the Massachusetts Handicap, and the Suburban Massachusetts Handicap in there. Just a blast from the past, one that's not around anymore, certainly not in its former glory. But in the career, Barons, 27 starts, 9 wins, 8 seconds, 3 thirds. And again, this was right in and around the turn of this century. 97 through 2000, Barons ran, and Barons banked $4.5 million. $4.5 million. Subsequently also won the 2000 Gulfstream Park Handicap. So as a repeat winner in there, went over to Dubai and ran second. So just a really, really nice stakes quality performer. $4.5 million in the bank, ran well at Saratoga, and spent the waning days up in Cabin Creek, Old Friends, right up in Greenfield, passed away age 20 on Sunday. Pennsylvania Derby, again, talked a little bit about this on the Handicappers Report earlier as well. Pennsylvania Derby, which according to the Racing Forum article, is supposed to be drawn today, or the entries taken today. We'll see how things firm up. But it looks like it is going to be a very, very interesting field this Saturday. Grade 2 Pennsylvania Derby, $1 million on the line. Protonico, Bayern, now being pointed by their trainers. And I said after Protonico won the Smarty Jones, Protonico came out of that Curlin up at Saratoga, which turned out to be pretty productive with VE Day, subsequently winning the Travers. Protonico comes out and wins the Smarty Jones down at Parks. But the Smarty Jones, which is a prep essentially for the Pennsylvania Derby, kind of close when you're a Todd Pletcher type of trainer, only about 3 weeks away. So I wondered, will they come back, will they not? Well, subsequently, Protonico had a workout yesterday at Belmont Park. Worked 49.26, out 5 furlongs and 102.01. Todd Pletcher says he seems to have bounced out of the race well. His energy level has been good. His work was good today. So they're looking to head to the Pennsylvania Derby. He'll be fun to watch. Bayern had a workout as well on Sunday out at Santa Anita, 58.6. Baffert said he went 3/4 and 111 and change. Baffert says, I just like the way he did it, in hand the whole way. The track is getting tight now, and decided to head to the Pennsylvania Derby. Javier Castellano will replace Joe Bravo on Protonico. Bravo was on board for the Smarty Jones win. But Castellano will be on this coming Saturday. So again, there are a couple that will be aimed. Obviously, California Chrome jumping in the mix, and I think I have some workout info for California Chrome also in here, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, California Chrome worked also this past weekend, Los Al on Saturday, 6 furlongs and 113.80. Art Sherman, he was very manageable. He did just what Victor wanted. Went the final 8th in 12 seconds and cooled out fine. We went over everything, and everything looks good. So California Chrome also expected for the Pennsylvania Derby. But besides those, some other probables: Candy Boy, Classic Jack and Roll, Noble Moon, and Tapiture as well. So shaping up to be a really, really nice event on Saturday down at Parks, the Grade 2, $1 million Pennsylvania Derby. Some interesting, I almost said disturbing. I don't know whether I label it as disturbing, maybe, but interesting nonetheless. Newspaper down in Louisiana had a report on Saturday. The Baton Rouge Advocate, and this was followed up by the Racing Forum, reported that Churchill Downs is attempting to sell fairgrounds. And of course, if you paid attention to that fairgrounds season this past, end of 2013 and into 2014 season, there were a number of issues down there at fairgrounds. And Churchill, the owner of fairgrounds, came under some heat from state regulators, from horsemen and whatnot. There was a lack of turf racing. In part, the weather didn't cooperate, but also there was some questions, maybe the condition of the turf course, just some other cosmetic things on the venue and whatnot. And so, as I say, there was some consternation put out there by the regulators and horsemen and fans. And Churchill now looking to potentially unload the fairgrounds. According to the Racing Forum article, they do note that the company just seems to, and quoting here essentially from the Daily Racing Forum article, Churchill Downs' long-term strategy appears to be focused more around casino gambling and its signature racing product, the Kentucky Derby, than operating a string of racetracks. Now, part of the reason I think, and of course they had that deal just earlier this year to let the Stronach people from Gulfstream operate Calder. And I think, maybe this is a tweaking of their strategy, their corporate strategy, because I think Calder and Fairgrounds both fit into the corporate structure because they both have alternative gambling there, slot machines. And so I think that's why Churchill Downs played into both of these tracks, looking for that possibility to happen. It happened. But now it seems like maybe they're focusing more on real casino gambling, and again, the Kentucky Derby, as opposed to racetracks that have gambling. And so it maybe is more of a, tying this in with what happened at Calder, maybe more of an emphasis being noted for Churchill Downs Incorporated and where their corporate strategy is moving. But we'll keep our eyes on that. The Racing Form article also notes CDI, Churchill Downs Incorporated, acquired the fairgrounds for roughly $47 million in 2004. $47 million is what they bought it for. 10 years later, they're asking $125 million. So they would wind up making a hefty profit on that. According to the Racing Form article, that price is a little too high for at least one interested party, Tom Benson, who is the local owner of the the NFL Saints and the NBA Hornets. So I guess he was a potential suitor, but price is a little too high for him. We'll keep our eyes on that because that's obviously going to be an interesting story in that it seems like over the past 10 years or so, Fairgrounds has really placed themselves as an important player on the winter scene. That last couple of seasons maybe has dampened that a little bit, but we'll keep our eyes down there and see how things play out at Fairgrounds. All right, did want to take a look at a couple of races before we go to our break. I will note one race, and we'll probably pull this up and take a look sometime before the end of the week. But yesterday at Los Al out in Southern California, they had the Barrett's Juvenile, which is a restricted race, and it's restricted to two-year-old colts and geldings that had been sold at Barrett's sale. So it's not, there are Kentucky breds in here and there are Cal breds, but they had to be sold at the Barrett's sale. Louisiana bred, I'm just looking down to see where they're all from. Mainly they're cow breds, but they're not all cow breds. So it's restricted, again, as they say, to horses that have been sold at the Barrett's sale. But it's a salty little race, and it was won yesterday by Wake Up Nick for trainer Doug O'Neill, Redham Racing. This one may be interesting to watch. As I say, before the end of the week, we'll probably replay this race. But Wake Up Nick, now 5 for 5 in the career for Doug O'Neill and Redham. Last couple of starts prior to this one were on the synthetic against state breds over at Del Mar, but has won at Santa Anita, won the Santa Anita Juvenile against Open Company on dirt, and won, again, a restricted race in a different kind of a restriction yesterday on the dirt at Los Al. But Wake Up Nick, as I say, we'll maybe pull that race up a little later in the week, because he could be an interesting two-year-old to keep our eyes on. Speaking of two-year-olds, let's, before we go to the break, take a look at a couple of races up at Woodbine on Saturday, focusing on the two-year-olds, leading off their big weekend of stakes action. We'll kick things off and watch the stretch run of the Natalma for the two-year-old fillies. And these two races are interesting because it was a big day for Mark Cassie and Conquest Stables. On Saturday, the number 7 Conquest Harlanate wins at over 6-1. Just gets up there. Number 7 winning over number 10 Isabel Sings. Isabel Sings was the 2-1 favorite. Isabel Sings came out of a career debut win at Belmont in July for Todd Pletcher. Isabel Sings again will run second. And a notable Saratoga performer, Skinner Box, the number 6 horse, runs third at 24-1 for Rick Violet. And Skinner Box was coming off of as I say, a win up at Saratoga, which was a career debut effort. Now the Beyer number was going to have to bump up a little bit, but at 24-1, Skinner Box runs third. As I say, though, it is the number 7 Conquest Harlanate winning. It's Mark Cassie, Conquest Stables, and this one was making the third career start. The career debut on the synthetic at Woodbine was a good third-place finish, followed up on the grass to break the maiden last time, and on the grass on Saturday going a mile. Conquest Harlanate, now one to keep our eyes on for Mark Cassie. On the boys' side on Saturday, the summer stakes, we are going to again watch Mark Cassie and Conquest Stables get it done. This time with Conquest Typhoon, the number 5 horse. Number 6, Samuel D. Champlain, runs second at 10-1, and number 2, U.S. Marshall, will run third. The favorite, Saratoga Dreamer, coming out of a win in the career debut at Saratoga for Christophe Clement. That will be the number 1 horse, and you'll see the Chicklet fade to the last placed of 8 in here, 8th of 8. Poor performance by the favorite, Saratoga Dreamer, but Conquest Titan, the number 5 horse, as opposed to the Philly side, this one's had a lot more experience. Conquest, they had one scratch. Conquest Tsunami had 4 career starts. Conquest Typhoon was essentially similar to the Philly, only a couple of career starts, but had not had a win yet. A couple of nice second-place finishes leading into this third career start. Conquest Typhoon, as you saw there in the Summer Stakes on Saturday, gets it done. So it was a big day for Mark Casse and Conquest Stables on Saturday. A couple of 2-year-old performers winning stakes races up there, and a couple that it seems like probably worth keeping our eyes on going forward as well. Not only from the performances, but from the connections as well. Over the past couple of years, they've had horses as 2-year-olds that have then moved on to make a little bit of noise as 3-year-olds also. All right, we will take our first break, and when we come back, it is Mike Penna, Horse Racing Radio Network. Take a look at some of the stakes action from the weekend, including yesterday's stakes at Woodbine. Northern Dancer, the Canadian, the Woodbine Mile. Also take a look at Kentucky Downs on Saturday. All of that right after this. Stay tuned.
Face it, most horse racing websites are just too much clutter, too much to navigate through. Next time, log on to CapitalOTB.com. Our newly designed website is easier than ever to use, with all the information the professional horse player needs. CapitalOTB.com.
I got it. Watch me. I got it. Hey! I got something that makes me want to shout. I got something that tells me what it's all about. I got a move that tells me what to do. If you don't, brothers and sisters, then you won't know what it's all about.
I'm Steve Beck.
And I'm Seth Merrill.
Together, we're loose on the lead on Capital OTB, Sundays at 10 a.m. Why should they watch, Seth?
Sit down on Sunday, have a bagel, get some great racing conversation.
Cream cheese only, no jelly. Sundays, 10 a.m., loose on the lead, Capital OTB.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
I'm Anthony Mormino. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrill.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Happy to be rejoined now. We haven't talked to him in a while, but it's Mike Penna of the Horse Racing Radio Network. Good morning and welcome back, Mike.
Hey, Seth, good morning. Happy to be back in the mix with you.
Yeah, happy to have you back on board. We'll do a little stakes recap, but before that, just want to catch up a little bit. Talk a little bit about Horse Racing Radio Network and your summer of action around the country.
Yeah, it's been a really busy summer for us. Of course, we were at Saratoga for most of the big races, had a chance to broadcast the Pacific Classic from out at Del Mar, and had a chance to visit with so many of the top players as we make our way toward the Breeders' Cup. And, of course, that's the primary focus of everything we're working on now as the exclusive radio partner of the Breeders' Cup. We're putting together nearly 20 hours of Breeders' Cup week coverage and all of our races leading up to it as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and people can go to our website to check out that entire schedule.
And I'll give you a chance, too. I went to the website, and I know things have changed up a little bit on Sirius and XM, so there have been maybe some channel switch-ups that you may want to alert people to who are listening to you on the satellite.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. We just sent out a press release about 45 minutes ago with the new channel information because it does get a little bit confusing for people because there will be multiple channels on Sirius XM that will be carrying our content as well as our colleague Steve Bick, who has his show from 9 in the morning till noon Eastern every Monday through Friday. His show, along with our shows from 6 to 7 Eastern during the week, will air on Sirius 220 and XM 206, but on the weekends, we're going to switch things up, and all of our weekend programming, which includes our Saturday morning Equine Forum show from 8 to 10, and our race coverage in the afternoons, everything on the weekends will air on Sirius 92 and XM 92. And, of course, all that information is now up there on our site at horseracingradio.net, and that's probably the easiest way for people to keep up with it, or to follow us on Twitter at HRRN, and all the information will be on there for people as well.
Excellent. And always also like to tell people to the archives if they want to pull up some of the stuff you've put out there over the past couple of weeks, or since we haven't talked to you, going back a while now. And I looked, and man, you guys were touching, you were the touch of gold this past week. Your trainer talked, Mark Cassie, before the break. We just took a look at the two-year-old races on Saturday up at Woodbine, and then going back to August 30th, Eric Guillot, Charlie Lepresti, and Eddie Plesa. You talked to all the big guns on that weekend as well, Woodward Day. So as I say, the touch of gold, and certainly worth going back and listening to for people, I would assume.
Yeah, then just the opposite of the Madden jinx, I guess, with the popular football game. So, yeah, for whatever reason, it's worked out well for all the connections that have come on, and we're happy to see all their success.
Absolutely, and again, folks can find those archived at the Horse Racing Radio Network website. All right, Mike, let's take a look at some of the weekend action of stakes. Let's kick things off and go back to Kentucky Downs on Saturday. Kentucky Turf Cup, one of a number of stakes races. That meets fun. It's fun because it's competitive. I like turf racing. They get nice competitive fields, and that course is so unique. It's just fun to watch the racing and to play the racing. Kentucky Turf Cup, we're going to watch the stretch run here. 3-year-olds and up, 1.5 miles, $600,000. The number 5 Sun Tracer will get it done for Florent Giraud, who's had such a nice summer up at Arlington Park. And in fact, Sun Tracer comes in from Arlington. Close up third in the Stars and Stripes 2 back, a disappointment in the American St. Ledger last time, but rebounds on Saturday. Pyrite Mountain, who came in off a start at Saratoga for Todd Pletcher, the number 2 horse, will wind up running second, and another horse that had been up at Saratoga most recently, the number 3 War Dancer, runs third as the 6-5 favorite for Ken McPeak. But as I say, Sun Tracer coming down from Arlington, Florent Giraud, who, as I say, kind of surprisingly put together a really nice summer up there at Arlington Park, gets it done. What were your thoughts of the Turf Cup?
Well, yeah, Sun Tracer picking up his first win in nearly 2 years. When you go back and look at his record, he was 0 for 7 in 2013. He was 0 for 6 so far in 2014, especially, as you mentioned, coming out of that 9th place finish, beating 20 lengths in the American St. Ledger. Nobody, myself included, saw this one coming because this was a really powerful win. Sat back off the pace. Florent Giraud, as you alluded to, Seth, riding as good as anybody in the game right now. Really patient, keeps this horse in the clear on the outside, and the 6-year-old by Kitten's Joy able to just pull away at the end. But just when it looks like he's going to go on to a clear victory, he has to hang on to win by just a nostril in here. But he does do it. The final running time, 2:27.12, nearly a course record, and he makes amends for that third-place finish in this race a year ago. And you have to think that Sun Tracer is a horse that just really likes this particular surface. His trainer, Chris Block, said after the race that they love being at Kentucky Downs, and I think Sun Tracer would echo those sentiments.
Yeah, it is kind of a horse for a course play, you would think, after, again, the nice third-place finish last year and follows it up, particularly after coming off the dud last time at Arlington. To move up so much, it does seem like he particularly likes that track, no question about it. All right, let's shift our attention now to yesterday at Woodbine, and we'll kick things off. First up, we're going to look at the stretch of the Northern Dancer, Grade 1 event, 1.5 miles, $300,000. And obviously, for me, the horse that's been interesting is one that I picked up on a little earlier this year when we were talking to folks up in the Chicago area. That's the Pizza Man, who really, the last couple of races has validated his talent by beating Open Company. This is a horse that certainly in that area has faced and done well against the state breds, but in the Stars and Stripes 2 back, and then last time in the American St. Ledger, just really has proven to be very interesting. Well, the Pizza Man's the number 1 horse here, will unfortunately be beaten as the favorite at 6-5. Sheikh Zayed Road will win at 3-1. The number 8 horse. Number 6, Dynamic Sky at 24-1, finishes second. And folks will see here, things get a little crowded, and then the horse comes out a little bit and bothers the eventual third-place finisher. There was a look at this, and Mike, I'd like your opinion. I looked and I thought I could have made an argument going both ways, but I think the stewards made the right decision because I think the horses probably finished where they would have even without the contact. So I think it was the right decision, but certainly if you looked at the head-on, there was some contact there that I think they had to take a real good look at. They did, but I think they eventually made the right decision.
Yeah, I think so too. And the point that you make, Seth, about did it affect the order of finish is a valid one. And to me, that's the number one thing that I always come back to when we're looking at these questionable inquiries. And does it affect the order of finish? Would it have been any different had they had made a change if the interference hadn't have happened? I don't think it would have. I agree with you. I think that they made the right decision, and Sheikh Zayed rode with the big win in here in the Northern Dancer.
Yeah, and it comes over and wins from Europe, and a couple of European winners in New York as well this weekend. So the Europeans, and we were talking a little bit earlier, my colleague Anthony Mormino and I, it seems like we're kind of laughing. You know, you talk about the glass ceiling. We're kind of wondering if there was a time when maybe the Europeans were kind of trying to define the linoleum floor, because it seems like they realized, you know, we can go over and win with our second stringers, and then they maybe tried the third stringers, and it seems like the last 6 months or so the Europeans haven't been doing as well, and I'm wondering if they just kind of, let's try the fourth stringers, and now they kind of realized where the floor is, and they've come back, because it was a big weekend for the Europeans, and Sheikh Zayed Road was one of those.
Yeah, a very big weekend for the Europeans. And every year when we get to Arlington Million in the middle of August, I always start talking about we tend to get a gauge as to how the Europeans, and not the top Europeans, but how the second and third stringers stack up against some of our top American horses on that particular day. And I don't know how strong this Northern Dancer field really was. I think it was okay. I don't think it was a great field. I don't think Sheikh Zayed Road is a great horse by any means. As you said, he's not in the top couple of tiers of the Europeans that we've seen come over in recent years. But he's a decent horse, and he now has 3 consecutive victories to his credit, and take nothing away from him. You have to show up. You have to run your race in these grade ones, and he did that.
Yeah, and as you say, the field maybe not as strong as we've seen in previous years. I mean, Forte de Marme, I think, is a little bit over the hill. This was at one time a real competitor up there in these kind of races. The Pizza Man, as I say, you just didn't know what he was going to do outside of Chicago. I think he's legitimate, but the move out of Chicago up against him, and then you look at the rest of the field, it was maybe a little bit suspect. Let's shift our attention now over to the Canadian, a little bit later on the card, grade 2 event, about 1 mile and an eighth on the turf for $300,000. We will watch the stretch run. The number 3 Deceptive Vision will win. This fairly lightly raced 4-year-old, only 6 career starts, 3 wins, a couple of second place finishes, had just missed in the Dancing Smart up here on July 6th. And so there's been a little bit of a layoff since then, but the number 3 Deceptive Vision will get it done. But more notable in here, gets it done as the 9-2 third choice. More notable in here, the favorite, number 2 Lexi Lou, coming out of, 3 straight wins up here at Woodbine. A couple of those, or one of those on the turf, the last one, pretty easy win. Lexi Lou, the number 2 horse, winds up finishing a very disappointing last as the 3-2 favorite. So that was the notable takeaway from this race.
Yeah, it really was, and I understand why she took so much money, but she was a 3-year-old facing older horses for the very first time, which immediately threw up a red flag for me. I wasn't in the Lexi Lou camp in here. I wasn't necessarily in the Deceptive Vision camp either, but Lexi Lou to me was a very beatable favorite, having to overcome everything that she did with facing older horses. She'd only had that one prior turf start, and although it was really, really impressive, it was against the State Bred Company, and now she had to step up with graded open company. There were a lot of reasons to play against Lexi Lou from a handicapping perspective. Didn't expect her to be last, but didn't necessarily expect her to win this race either. Going back to the winner, Deceptive Vision, she ran a bang-up race. Malcolm Pierce gets another victory in this race. The last time he won it was in 2001 with Diadella for Stronach Stables. And I thought it was interesting that he now wins it for another iconic stable in Samson Farm, and they add to their record with now 4 wins in the Canadian Stakes, and their first since Sky Trial in 1998. Those 4 wins tops among all owners in the race, and Samson back in the winner's circle with a very talented filly by AP Indy, and she just continues to get better. You mentioned that Dan Smartley Stakes last time out in July when she was beaten at the wire, just failed to hold on that day. We could be looking at a two-time greatest stakes winner if she wins that one, but she is now a Grade 2 winner in the Canadian and on her way to the Filly and Mare Turf should they choose to go that direction.
Yeah, again, very lightly raced for a 4-year-old, so this is one we'll keep our eyes on. Moving on now to the Woodbine Mile, the highlight of the weekend. Yesterday, $1 million, Grade 1 event, 3-year-olds and up going a mile. Obviously, no Wise Dan in here, which is unfortunate, but still a nice, fun, competitive field. We'll watch the stretch run, and it will be a Euro. Getting it done again. Trade Storm will win. Most recently had raced over in New York and finished second. But this is one that spent the winter in Dubai. Couple of starts since then in Great Britain, and then ships over here to take the Woodbine Mile yesterday. Number 2 horse goes off at 9-2. Running second, the number 5 Kagan for Mark Cassie. This is a horse that had won the Grade 2 Play King most recently, and finishing third, the number 8 Bobby's Kitten. Bobby's Kitten for Chad Brown and Ken and Sarah Ramsey, and Bobby's Kitten most recently in the Hall of Fame up at Saratoga, ran a good second. A nice finish here as they come down to the wire. But again, it will be the European Trade Storm getting it done. What were your thoughts in the Woodbine Mile?
Yeah, I thought Bobby's Kitten ran a really, really good race. And we talked about Lexi Liu facing older horses for the first time. Well, here's Bobby's Kitten, ultra-talented, but facing older horses for the first time, and hangs on very gamely, in my opinion, to be third. Kagan, a horse that I thought was the horse to beat in this race, runs a really good race. Had to wait for some running room at the top of the stretch, but really came running when he got clear, just unable to run down Trade Storm, who was your eventual winner. And Trade Storm, like we talked about in the last race, that's not considered to be a top-class European. He's only 5 for 32 lifetime, now 6 for 33 with this victory, but really well ridden under Jamie Spencer and able to get the victory in a race that he figured as a player. I believe he was 9-2 were the off odds on Trade Storm. He figured to be a player, and you had to give him some respect, but again, not one of the top Europeans that we're going to see come over, especially when we get closer to the Breeders' Cup.
And notable for finishing back in the pack, number 11, Grand Arch winds up running 5th at 7-2, and the favorite in here was Jack Milton, also at 7-2 from Todd Pletcher, Javier Castellano on board, 9th in the field of 11. But again, a nice addition. You know, it doesn't stack up to having Wise Dan up there as they have the past couple of seasons, but it was still a nice, fun addition of the Woodbine Mile. And again, the undercard and the two-year-old stakes on Saturday made for a nice stakes weekend up there at Woodbine. Mike, before we let you go, we've been catching up with everybody with our first phone visits on the rebounds for folks, just to kind of get some thoughts on the summer in general. I've set people up by talking about the comeback for Wise Dan, I thought was great, the retirement of Tom Durkin, the Pack Classic with Shared Belief winning, Travers with the Jimmy Jerkins Exacta, and then going forward this weekend, you know, because of things that have happened with Shared Belief and with the Travers, maybe the 3-year-old picture becoming a little bit interesting, and coming up this weekend, the Pennsylvania Derby. But what were some of your thoughts going back over the summer?
Well, you know, the one thing that sticks out to me is the older horse, I guess you could call it the handicap division, although it's not much of a handicap division anymore, but the older horse division that, Seth, going into this year, we thought was going to be as strong a division as we have seen in quite some time. You had Mucho Macho Man, who was looking to defend his title in the Breeders' Cup Classic. You had Game On Dude, who, as we know, hasn't come back to be the same Game On Dude we were used to seeing. You had Will Take Charge, who most people thought was going to be win several races this year and be a major player in all the big races. None of those things have really panned out. And then Palace Malice burst onto the scene, and all of a sudden he's retired now. So your big four that we were looking at early in the season are really non-factors at this point. Of course, Mucho Macho Man also retired. That, to me, is the biggest story right now. You're looking at horses like It's My Lucky Day and Moreno all of a sudden jumping up to the head of the class in the older horse division. And maybe those 3-year-olds that we talked about early in the season through the Triple Crown that a lot of people were knocking because California Chrome took 2 of the first 3 legs of the Triple Crown, a lot of people knocking the 3-year-olds, maybe they're not quite as bad as we thought they were, and I think we're going to see a really interesting Breeders' Cup Classic because I'm not sold on the strength of the older horse division right now, and these 3-year-olds might be a little better. I think people may have underestimated them just a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great point. That absolutely is one of the stories of the summer, because I started talking about that right after the defeat of Palace Malice in the Whitney, just that. 3 months before, we had been so high on this handicap division, and it has kind of fallen apart. But you fold in a great point. Maybe looking at what Shared Belief did out in the Pacific Classic, these 3-year-olds could jump up, and it could be very, very interesting heading to the Breeders' Cup Classic. So absolutely great point. All right, Mike, we appreciate the visit, and I understand we won't be able to get in touch with you next week, but we'll catch up with you 2 weeks down the road. And again, folks can catch up with the archives and all the programming and the channel switches by going to Horse Racing Radio Network's website. Thanks for the visit. We'll talk to you in 2.
Seth, you got it. Thanks, buddy.
All right, Mike Penna, Horse Racing Radio Network. We'll take our next break. When we come back, Frank Vespi from theracingbiz.com. We'll talk some of the Laurel action with the Virginia Breds this past Saturday. Right after this, stay tuned.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Hey race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, and amazing Vegas-style atmosphere. The Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Happy to be joined by Frank Vespi of theracingbiz.com. Good morning, Frank.
Hey, Seth. Good to be with you.
Happy to have you on board. And we had you on board last Saturday because there was last Monday because a week ago this past Saturday, a nice slate of stakes at Laurel, and we wanted to talk about that. But they did it again this week with a little bit of a twist. It was Virginia bred stakes, and I'm assuming that's kind of an outcropping of the situation at Colonial Downs.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When Colonial and the Virginia Horsemen couldn't reach a deal to run a 2014 race meet, the HBPA in Virginia and the VTA, which is their Breeders' Association, decided that they didn't want to just give up the Virginia bred stakes schedule for the year. So they got to talking with the folks at Laurel and the Maryland Racing Commission, and were able to put together an agreement to run these 5 races, which it turned out to be 6 because one of them was run in 2 divisions at Laurel. And I think, it was it made for an interesting day, and I think that a lot of the Virginia folks were really happy with it. I mean, they ended up with good-sized fields, bigger than they'd had. In fact, the guy from the HBPA said it was the biggest fields they'd ever had for these races, and they got some horses that they probably aren't going to get if you got to ship all the way down to Colonial Downs. So I think it worked out pretty well for them.
Yeah, I said that at the top of the show as I set up your segment. It was a really fun day because it brought in Virginia breds, but they came in from all different venues. And I'm just looking, we're going to talk a little bit in just a second about the Brookmead. And I'm looking at the last venue these horses all raced at before showing up on Saturday. Delaware, couple from Saratoga, more Delaware, Monmouth, Presque Isle, another Presque Isle, Laurel, Arlington, Gulfstream. So again, it brought in nice diverse fields, which makes for very competitive betting, I think, because it adds a little extra to the handicapping puzzle. And I think that was demonstrated by this Brookmead we're going to take a look at. It's, again, Virginia bred fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. They're going to go 1 mile and a 16th on the grass, and the number 10 M-Bar will win at 5-2. The favorite, the number 3 Lawn Party, 2-1. And when you get a 2-1 favorite, that's what you're looking for. Stay away from that chalk. So a field of 8, the favorite was only 2-1. It is going to be number 3 Lawn Party, who will wind up finishing 3rd. Favored, I think, a lot on the connection. Stone Street, George Bolton, and Todd Pletcher. Lawn Party came out of a 5th place finish in an allowance up at Saratoga, winds up 3rd in here, running 2nd to number 5, Misty and Malibu at 7-2. But again, it was M-Bar winning, and M-Bar is a horse with some nice back class, coming out of a couple of graded stakes events, most recently at Arlington and Churchill, over $300,000 in the bank. So you got 5-2 on a horse that's dropping into restricted company. Might have had a little bit of a class edge on this bunch.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, M-Bar's kind of a hard hitter, and she's won the Dahlia at Pimlico 2 years running, and you know, this is the kind of horse, they got a couple of these at this that wasn't probably a year ago, didn't come to the Virginia bred stakes, and I think they caught a little bit of a break with M-Bar, who's not quite running quite to the form that she had maybe a year ago. So she drops into a spot here where where I think you're right. I think she has a little bit of a class advantage, and it wasn't easy, but she showed it, and so it's a nice story. It's nice to see her get back on the winning trail.
Yeah, it just shows how class can rejuvenate, and that's true for all of us. You get against. I know I play some old farts basketball during the winter time, and I got one group that's young kids and one group that are a little older, and I'm a little bit better with the older group. Yeah, the class move makes a difference for me too.
I understand.
So M-Bar gets it done. Let's take a look now. Actually, we won't take a look. I'm going to look at the other division of, as you say, the split division of the Jamestown. We'll just talk about the first division. 2-year-old Virginia breds going 5.5 on the grass. The winner here was, no surprise, it's Wesley Ward in a turf sprint. Now, this horse debuted up at Saratoga early in the meet, showed some nice speed, and wound up finishing 6th in a field of 7 with Frankie Dettori on board. Off since then, but obviously the Wesley Ward in a turf sprint is going to take a lot of action. This one did 30 cents to the dollar and lived up to it. And that's essentially why I decided to show the video of the other half of this split division race, because, you know, it's just kind of master of the obvious here with Wesley Ward getting it done. But in only the second career start, Hooligan might be one to keep our eyes on.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, I went back and watched the replay earlier today, and Hooligan didn't have the best of the trip here. You know, he broke, she broke actually quite sharply. Then Trevor kind of took her back and sat off the pace, and then had to kind of come between horses. And so I think this horse showed, pretty good maturity for a second start for a young 2-year-old making her second start, and it was a pretty good effort. And I'm not sure how much was in this race, and Bay Finn, who came in second, made a nice run as a first starter for Gary Capuano, and but it was a pretty good effort. The other division I thought was even more interesting and went a little bit faster than this division.
Yeah, and we'll show that because, of course, this is my man Jonathan Shepard, so we'll get to that in a second. We got them in chronological order. But I agree. I thought that race was kind of interesting, and the winner there I will definitely follow. But you made a good point also. Hooligan's a filly. And because these it wasn't broken up by sexes, there are a number of fillies in this race and the other division as well, but it still is worth noting this is a filly, and there were some boys in the race as well. So Hooligan, interesting from Wesley Ward. Another one we'll just take a quick look at, or a quick talk about. Don't have the stretcher on here, but the Oakley, these are fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up, going 5.5 on the turf. The winner here was the number 6, Heaven Knows What. Most recently had raced in the turf Amazon last time, so maybe a little bit over her head. Ran an okay fifth after having been up and contending just prior to the Turf Amazon in the Caress up at Saratoga. But again, it may be one of those situations where this horse was finding a little bit of class relief with the move into restricted company here, and in fact went off as the 9-5 favorite. Heaven Knows What gets it done in the Oakley.
Yeah, Heaven Knows What and Lying Down by Me ran 1-2 in this race a year ago, with Lying Down by Me running down Heaven Knows What in the shadow of the wire. This year they reprise it and they run 1-2 again, but it's Heaven Knows What who gets the money here. And you know, she's a horse that she's a speedster, and she's one of those who kind of has a tendency to run off with the rider. And you know, so I think Victor Carrasco did a good job here, reserving her speed long enough so that she had plenty left in the tank. She won by a couple, and you know, had a really nice trip, just sitting off speed that didn't figure to stay on, and did stay on. So, you know, she's a decent horse. She's a pretty nice horse, and I think you said it. I mean, she didn't have a very good trip in the Turf Amazon, but she's probably not quite good enough for those horses anyway. But this kind of company fits her very nicely.
All right, let's move on to the Punchline. Again, 5.5 on the turf. This time it's 3-year-olds and up. As noted again, Virginia breds. We're going to watch the stretch run to the Punchline, and it will be the number 10, Two Notch Road, getting it done. Two Notch Road was a little bit interesting to me coming into this off of some racing prominently in a couple of stakes up at Monmouth before getting caught. I thought this one, again, maybe a class move, and the 5.5 would fit this one, you know, hit this one square between the eyes. Running second, the number 5, Bolton Out. 2-1 favorite was Bolton Out. And Bolton Out, I have to admit, if I was playing the race, Bolton Out may have been the direction I would have gone in here, because this one was coming off of a nice win over at Delaware last time with a pretty good number, albeit at 7.5, but it run well at 5.5 previous. So that's probably the direction I would have gone. But I think you could have made a case for either of these. Running third is the number 4, Joe Tess. Joe Tess coming out of a poor try in the Ocean Port at Monmouth, but was maybe a little bit interesting on the cutback and a nice bullet work coming into this. So you had 7-2, over 2-1, over 5-2. You had the 3 logicals kind of coming in and getting it done here in the Punchline. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Two Notch Road's an interesting horse. I mean, this horse, he's a 7-year-old. He hadn't won a race since 2010. Which is a lengthy cold streak.
Yeah.
I mean, he hadn't run a lot. He's only made 18 career starts, and he's mostly been running over his head, frankly. I mean, this is a horse, he broke his maiden as a 2-year-old in the Continental Mile, and he was 107-1. And he's been in mostly graded company the last couple of years, and mostly a long shot, and mostly up the track. Now they suddenly dial him back to 5.5 furlongs and drop him in a Virginia bred company, and he ran great. He looked really good here. He was wide on the turn. Julian Pimentel was riding and did a nice job getting him outside, and he cruised on to victory. So I think they have found something that they now think this is what this horse is going to be good at. So I suspect we're going to see him possibly in a couple of weeks in the Laurel Dash, where he'll probably see Ben's Cat, which should be interesting. But I think this is a horse that it's taken a while, but maybe they found the thing he's going to thrive at.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because honestly I hadn't noticed that. He was in the McSorley last time up at Monmouth at 5.5. But that was his only try, really, in a turf sprint. So, yeah, maybe they took them a while, but at age 7, Two Notch Road, they found the specialty in here. And I always say, I think turf sprints are a specialty. I think some horses are good at it, and some horses aren't. And it's not just if you're good on the turf. I think you have to be a good turf sprinter, particularly when you're stepping into turf sprint stakes.
Yeah, I mean, you really do, and I mean the pace is so hot in these races. I mean, you don't get a breather. You make a mistake and you're done. You know, if you don't brake right or you get caught in traffic, you're done. And so I think Pimentel rode him astutely here, even though he was wide. He kept him out of trouble, which is so important in these turf sprints. And as you know, they can be a little bit of a crapshoot because. Yeah. Tiny little things are going to make the difference, but it should be interesting to see how this horse, what happens with this horse going forward.
Absolutely. All right, and now that other division of the Jamestown, the one we're going to take a look at, because as noted, my man Jonathan Shepard, first-time starter by Bluegrass Cat. Moon River is going to get the job done here, the number 2 horse. And because this is the first career start, debuts in a stakes race, again, a restricted stakes race, and admittedly, you have some other first-time starters in here, and some of them making the second start, so we don't really know how to define this field. But still, in the first career start, pretty nice win from the number 2 Moon River. Another first-time starter, the number 4 John's Kitten, gets it done in the career debut also, running second by Kitten's Joy. So I think the top 2 in here kind of interesting. But again, with my man Jonathan Shepard training, number 2 Moon River, I'm absolutely going to be interested to see what this one does next time out.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Shepard's obviously a terrific trainer, not really known for, early 2-year-old turf sprinters per se.
Yeah.
I mean, he's more of a going long and getting older kind of guy rather than a precocious sprinter kind of guy. And this is a horse. I talked with Mr. Backer, who is the guy who bred this horse, knows the horse, who is kind of a patriarch of Virginia racing, and he said that they had been very, very high on this horse. He really thought he was going to win this race, and the horse looked very good in winning. Some late action from John's Kitten, who also looked good, but I think Moon River really, he is going to be an interesting horse going forward. Jonathan was not at the race, but I understand he really likes this horse as well. And, obviously it's a vote of confidence to debut, even if it is restricted stakes company. It's a vote of confidence to debut in that.
Absolutely.
Kind of
Absolutely.
Should be fun to see this horse.
Yeah, the horse's name again, Moon River, for my man Jonathan Shepard. We'll keep an eye on that one. And finally, they wound up the day with the Burt Allen. The Burt Allen, again, Virginia breds, 3-year-olds and up, mile and a 16th on the turf. Rosebriar will be the winner in here, coming in off of a couple of wins, most recently at Monmouth, prior to that at Delaware, ridden by Trevor McCarthy. The number 9 Rosebriar will win as the 8-5 favorite. Running second will be number 1 Hard Enough, coming out of a win up at Saratoga. A win and a claim in an off-the-turf event. Moved into the barn of Mike Trombetta, who was a little slow up at Saratoga, but Hard Enough ran pretty well for him first time off the claim. And then Dan Hauser, the number 6 horse, will run third in here. That one also coming in off of a couple of starts, most recently Monmouth and Delaware, although they weren't especially confident start, races you could have much confidence on, but he'll wind up running third in here. Number 9, again, Rosebriar will win. Your thoughts on the Burt Allen?
Well, I mean, this was really a good group for Virginia bred stake. I mean, Hard Enough won a grade 3 earlier this year. Dan Hauser won this race a year ago, and the horse that placed a year ago, Powder Mountain, was back. Morrow Tap was beaten 4 lengths by Wise Dan just a couple of races ago for him. And then you got Rosebriar, who's more of a getting good now kind of horse. So this was really a nice group for the Burt Allen Stakes, and it was an eventful opening quarter mile. Rosebriar took a bad step. Hard Enough was in tight. There was some bumping and the whole routine, and the way it sorted out is Gumper got the lead and slowed it right down, went through a very sluggish half and 49 and change, and that meant that everybody was sitting right off them. And Trevor McCarthy just, had managed to get a really nice trip with Rosebriar, kind of sitting off the speed, and then was much the best when he kicked it in.
And I agree, it was kind of a nice field. The disappointment there for me, my man Jonathan Shepard and Sartorius wind up finishing 8th in the field of 9. So you can't always get the Shepards home at a price. But I had mine at the end of the Saratoga meet, so I'm happy for a couple of months now. Frank, we always appreciate the visit. Again, remind people, theracingbiz.com. You guys do a great job of covering racing in the Mid-Atlantic region. I'm assuming, though, there will be some nice lead-ups maybe to the Big Day at Pennsylvania Parks coming up on the weekend?
Yeah, we're obviously it's exciting to have the kind of field that's shaping up with Pennsylvania Derby and the Cotillion. So it should be really neat, and we're certainly looking forward to that. Going to be paying close attention to it.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun, no question about it. Frank, as always, we appreciate the visit, and we'll catch up with you down the road.
My pleasure, Seth. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Frank Vespi, theracingbiz.com. A little bit earlier, it was Mike Penna from the Horse Racing Radio Network, did some stakes recaps for this Monday edition of Racing Across America. We're here every Monday through Friday from 10 until 11 a.m. At 9 a.m., it is the Handicappers Report. This morning, Anthony Mormino and I took a look at Parks and Finger Lakes. Hopefully, we gave you some good information. So enjoy the racing this afternoon. Let's cash a few tickets. We'll see you right back here tomorrow morning.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.